I can't help but think about that with a particular story from Minneapolis's history of
Mhm.
the Arthur and Edith Lee family and their
Yeah.
home in South
Yeah.
Minneapolis, which was not specifically. So the story for people who are unfamiliar is that it's a World War I veteran and his family, Arthur and Edith Lee. It's a black family moving into a South Minneapolis
Mhm.
neighborhood that did not have covenants on. I think there were covenants on houses nearby, but not actually in
Mhm.
their neighborhood.
Correct. Yeah.
But it was a place where essentially it's understood black people are not welcome to live in this neighborhood. It is
Mhm.
a sort of
Mhm.
self-segregated type of a situation, to
Yep.
the point where when the family moves in, there is strong, like large violent resistance to the family living there. And so I think that,
6,000 people. Yeah.
yeah, thousands of people surrounding their house
Yep.
every night for a while, a month if not months on end.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So that, I think,
Yeah.
speaks to that
Yeah.
halo effect of, even though it was not specifically in a covenanted neighborhood, it was this is who is welcome and this is who is not, even if it is not explicitly stated.
It also shows just one thing that we have found is that when we look at our map, there's some places on the map where we're like, wow, I would have expected to find covenants here, and we don't. But as we've looked through newspaper sources in particular, or through other kind of archival documents, we found that there's a lot of incidents of racial violence in those neighborhoods. And so that's one thing that we always try to emphasize, that covenants work in concert with racial violence, so that the Lees moved to a little house on the corner of 46th and Clinton in South Minneapolis, and you can actually visit the site, the house. There's a marker outside that the neighborhood has now put up to memorialize this really terrible incident. But the Lees had been living further north in the Old South Side, and they it was 1931. They Arthur had a steady job at the post office. They wanted to invest in a house, have more stability. They had a 5-year-old daughter who was about to start kindergarten. And so they found this tiny little white bungalow, but it was located just a couple blocks out of what the people in the neighborhood perceived to be the outside of the bounds of where Black people were supposed to live, right? And so they organized this violent mob during the summer of 1931, where thousands and thousands of people, literally at sometimes 6,000 people, would show up every night to terrorize the Lees and try to get them to move. And the Lees actually had to sleep in the basement of their house because people kept shooting through the windows and throwing rocks through the windows. And they really wanted, I mean, and they did, they really fought to stay in their home because they felt like if they left, there would be no hope for anyone coming. It was a matter of principle for them, for their family, but also for other Black people who were hoping to buy homes and live where they wanted to live in South Minneapolis. So yeah, so that's a really important story, I think, for us to reflect on as Minneapolitans, and think about, what would we do if we
Yeah.
knew that was happening today.
And that's, of the many interesting pieces of that story, one of them is that they did not move until they felt they had showed, you did not force us out of here.
Right. Yeah.
So they moved, it was 3 or so years later that they ended up moving out of the house. But
And I mean, they were able to stay because they had support. They had social support. They had support from Arthur's coworkers at the post office, who actually formed an armed perimeter around the house. Other military veterans showed up to help them. People in the NAACP. The president of the NAACP was a woman named Lena Olive Smith. She was the first Black woman to pass the bar in the state of Minnesota. And she fought fiercely for them because there were other people who were urging them, like, why are you making trouble? Why don't you just move out? Like, we'll find you another place to live. But she really was adamant that she had their back and that she was going to fight for their right to stay in their home.